Glad you could join us on National Fried Chicken Day. This is a pretty good one for who we have in studio, I feel like. We got D-Money. He's able to roll with everything. A little birdie told me that he is a birthday boy tomorrow, so we're going to celebrate his birthday today. That's really the national day that we're celebrating. So we got to generate some interest so that you get more gifts and things tomorrow. What do you want for your birthday?
Peace and quiet.
Right now, I don't think your dad would like that.
No.
Oh, okay.
In general,
I mean, from me, I can garner that request. It makes sense, but I can't right now. We'd have dead air. But thankfully, we won't have dead air because we have Clay Kregel here. He works with me at Encore Business Group, and we want to talk about some sports memorabilia. But we got to talk fried chicken first because I feel like this is a good one for you. You like fried chicken.
Oh yeah. Fried chicken. It's up there in my favorite foods for sure. It's got to be done right. It's one of those things where it always sounds good, and then maybe an hour or so after you're done eating it, it doesn't sound as good. But big fan of fried chicken. I think if I had to pick a fast food fried chicken, I think I'd go KFC.
Oh, I was wondering if you'd pick that. That was so. My two questions that I was thinking built around fried chicken were favorite place to get it, and then favorite sauce to dip it in. I feel like that's an appropriate question for fried chicken.
Yeah, I'm pretty boring with the sauce. I'd go honey mustard. I feel like that's a very casual answer. But yeah, I'd say KFC for bone-in fried chicken. And then if you're going boneless fried chicken, it's tough to beat Chick-fil-A. The Chick-fil-A sandwich that they got is pretty good with extra pickles.
I think Chick-fil-A would be my choice for when I do get fried chicken. I usually get their chicken nuggets there with the honey mustard. So that's kind of on brand for me. I feel like with them. KFC brought the Twister back though. I was very happy about that. That was probably before your time almost, because that was when I was in college. They had the Twister, which is just basically like a roll up sandwich with chicken tenders and a sauce, like a black pepper sauce or something. But it's pretty good. Yeah, you would like that. What about you, Dan? Do you have a fried chicken nominee?
no, I do not like fried chicken.
Oh,
like the classic, just eat it. It's got some bones in it. I'd rather go with wings. I mean, if you're counting,
yeah, I think I would rather have that too. And also, as the person that's in studio with us knows, I have the odd habit of removing the fried nature of the fried chicken with a lot of my
based
chicken.
on what I've heard you talk about, I could see that.
He's definitely got some of the strangest food habits that I've seen in my life, but I appreciate it.
Can we do a top 3 weird food habits of mine? Do we have it? That's one.
That's got to be one. I don't know, just not eating lunch, but eating 3 beef sticks out of your backpack is definitely
that's a good one.
there.
Yeah, I knew the meat sticks would come
they
up.
have to be.
Thanks to Sobeys.
Yes,
They're
shout out Sobeys.
Yeah, they're a station sponsor, so thank you, Sobe.
What other weird ones?
Oh, there's a few. I got to think of them here. The fried chicken, I think, is the main one that I've done. I mix all my food together.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
And the one thing that just came to my mind is always reusing any cup you ever have. So
that's
if you
true.
had Panera Bread 2 weeks ago and you hadn't had it for 2 weeks, you probably still have that cup that you just keep
definitely
refilling.
Yeah,
So I'd say that's up there.
That's true on the plastic cup side.
Yes.
Because those paper cups, I still want to get Panera as a sponsor, so I don't want to be too harsh on them right now. But the paper cups can only make it one time. You try to warm that up in the microwave, it's not working. And I've tried, so I know that. Yeah, that's a good one. I do have, because you just got to rinse out the cups, and then you can go in and get 2, because then you get a new cup. Because I do get a new cup. And then the new cup makes its way into the rotation. But there's always a possibility that old cup's been in the rotation since, one of the Bushes was president too. So, but no, that's good. That's a good top 3. And see, Dan hasn't even seen me eat really, but he just knows that I'm strange.
Yeah,
I think that was all that is.
You just seem like I don't know about a clean eater, but you just seem kind of finicky. I don't know if that the way you've.
I'm finicky once I have the food. I'm not necessarily finicky about what I choose.
Yeah, in terms of options, he's pretty much down for anything. And then once he just starts eating it, you just kind of raise an eyebrow and you're like, I haven't seen that outside of like my 5-year-old nephew before.
Why are you eating around the cheeseburger instead of straight through the cheeseburger? That's another one that could have made the top 3. I did that with my cinnamon rolls when I was younger, and then my dad would eat the middle of the cinnamon roll, and I was always so mad. I would eat around it, and then he'd eat the center.
You should have gotten to the middle first.
Well, I know. That's, I guess, what he was teaching me. I didn't really learn it, and I still eat like that. I'm 43, so there's that. But yeah, see, this was a good food segment. Clay has seen me eat a decent amount, so yeah, he's aware of some of my idiosyncrasies, of which I have many, which Dan knows too. But the real reason, other than that was a good reason to have Clay here. But the real reason we have him here is because he's kind of our go-to guy for the memorabilia related stuff. That's my background. That's how him and I kind of hooked up in the first place. We worked together, and we're working together to launch something new here, something kind of big that I'm excited about. So tell them about EBG Auction House here.
Yeah. So for those who have heard me on the show before, I'm from Encore Business Group, which Ryan's a business partner owner of. And I'm the operations manager, and Ryan and I, like he said, have a background in sports memorabilia together. So we've sort of moved and started a division of Encore Business Group called EBG Auction House. That's still in the early stages of getting going, but what we're going to have is some sports memorabilia auctions. I think they're going to be monthly at this point, and a lot of big items coming. We'll be able to share those in the coming weeks on our Facebook pages and such. And then we'll also be having regular like liquidation style auctions where people are going to be able to get deals on various items. You know, right now there's projected to be shoes, boots, clothes, toys, all kinds of different things for people here locally in GR area to bid on. And then also there'll be a lot of options for shipping as well. So we're pretty excited about that. I'm particularly excited about the sports memorabilia side of things, as that's a huge interest of mine. And yeah, we've got some cool stuff coming our way.
We're trying to solve a couple issues here with this auction house, because there are auction houses out there and they do a pretty decent job, a lot of them. But there's a couple things that we're trying to focus on with our approach. One, Clay sees a lot because he goes to a lot of card shows. He buys a lot of cards, and he has his own kind of card selling business. And I feel like one problem, and this isn't always a problem, but when something happens, like there was local news here that was pretty big that multiple people sent to me, and Clay had seen this too, where a local lady found a bunch of 1933 Gaudy cards by virtue of inheriting her brother's storage unit, I think, and from Nebraska. She almost threw the tin away that they were in because it just had some crate paper and packing material on it. So she thought, oh, this is just junk. And she's like, well, wait a minute, it's a tin. So then she found these cards that aggregate values over 100,000. I don't know which cards she has, but that it's certainly over 100,000 for cards that old. But the problem is when you take it in, I won't name any places, but when you take it into a baseball card shop, the normal way of selling it is going to be, well, yeah, I'll buy it off of you, but I'll try to buy it as low as I can and then resell it and get that margin. I feel like that's a lot of the industry. You hang out at these card shows, Clay, and I feel like that's a lot of what happens there. They're always trying to buy, but they're just buying to resell and make the margin, and then they're not really incentivized to work with the seller.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, yeah, I couldn't have explained that much better myself, but yeah, the idea of the auction is, people bringing their items to us. We help identify what we think the value is, and we'll get it listed to a large audience for them to bid on and see the items and such. But basically our philosophy is the better that the customer that we're working with does, the better that overall that they're going to do in terms of value. So we are sort of not necessarily looking to lowball and extract every single dollar possible and just buy it and move on. But we're trying to get the most value for their item, get it in front of the most people's eyes as possible. And then also, get them that highest sale price that they deserve for items as big as that or as small as, just a regular signed baseball by a random major leaguer. We plan on working with all sorts of different items and different values and such.
Aligned incentives are so important in life in general, and that's what we're trying to go with this auction, because really how it started is we were getting people that just wanted us to consult on their collections. They didn't know necessarily what they had or what it was worth, and because I have a background and have written a book about sports memorabilia, and Clay is going to shows every week and has his finger on the pulse of everything, they want to pull us in on this stuff. And so we felt like this was a more formal way to help folks. The other kind of initiative, which will be part of this, is every auction, especially on the sports memorabilia side, will have a charity partner to it. So I think that part is the part I'm most excited about, because we're going to be able to give money back to valuable causes, because some of the amounts can get pretty high, and we're hoping that people do bid and people get value out of their items. But in doing that, we'd love to direct money to different causes that are near and dear to sometimes the consigners' hearts and things like that. So we're going to partner with some local folks to be able to direct some money to charity. So that's going to be fun. Do you have an item that we have already that you're most excited about going into auction here?
Yeah, I would say it's something that we recently have talked about in the last month or two, and it's your team. Obviously, Indiana football won the national championship, and we actually just got a ring from that was issued to one of the players that's going to be featured in our sports auction. Coming up here, we don't have an exact date or month yet, but that'll be a pretty cool piece to see. Obviously, Indiana football was down in the dumps for a long time, and they have a very large fan base. So I'm sure that's going to be one of our hotter items. And just pretty cool to see that in person, and intrigued to see the amount of interest that it gains.
Especially because this is a combination between, like you said, it was literally the losingest program in college football history. I think we passed Northwestern this year. So sorry, Northwestern, but they'll pass somebody else. I don't know who's second to last now, but Indiana was not a great program. I've been following them forever, but the fan base is elated here, and they got a bunch of rings for the championship, but this is the college football playoff championship ring, and it's a nice looking ring. It'll be it would be a centerpiece of a collection, I think.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've seen it in person already. It's pretty cool, and it's even more rare considering Indiana basketball seems to be going nowhere. So some of their fans will appreciate the football championship, because I don't think basketball championship's coming anytime soon.
For context, Clay has a Michigan shirt on right now, just so you can't see him in studio, but he's got a Michigan shirt and a Tigers hat, which is really just neutral in this discussion, but he's got a Michigan shirt. He's a Michigan supporter, and they are a better basketball team for sure. And it's weird because Indiana's better at football for the moment. I don't think that's going to stay that way, but it's a weird environment that we live in. Still, when you say Indiana won a national championship, or when people will say, oh, the upper echelon of the Big Ten is Oregon, Ohio State, and Indiana, I'm like, well, one of those is on the West Coast. One of those is terrible. And then the other's Ohio State, I guess, which some people would say that's the terrible one, I guess.
Yeah, if there's anyone out there that just woke up from a coma, they're going to be incredibly confused at the state of college football right now.
Exactly. They're like, what decade is this? But no, it's going to be exciting. Tell people where they can follow for more updates, because like Clay said, this will be launched here as the summer kind of winds down and the fall approaches.
Yeah. So we're still working on some things right now. Everything from the website to social media is a work in progress currently, but I would say the best place for shared updates would be just Encore Business Group on Facebook, and then also encorebusinessgroup.com. There'll be a lot of banners, different links. I would invite you to all follow the page for it. And yeah, there'll be lots of updates, featured items, specific dates, and just more details to come.
We'll have a lot of updates on there. Yeah, we're planning on really getting this out to the community, because it is multifaceted with the liquidation part and the sports memorabilia part. But be sure to tune in. We'll be updating it because Encore's a sponsor of the show and of Shane Graham's Extra Points. So we'll be able to keep some updates flowing here. But yeah, excited about that. We're gonna take a quick break and then come back with Clay in studio and maybe talk about some of the goings on in the memorabilia industry and sports as a whole. So stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Coming back here in studio with Clay and D Money. I wanted to talk a little Tigers here. He's got the Tigers hat on. I gave him the option. He chose his hat versus his shirt. So he's got the Tigers hat going. And Clay played baseball for many years and knows baseball well, follows the Tigers well. I'm curious how you see the season going, because they're in a weird spot. They've been in a strange spot basically most of the season, where their record is not great. It's not what they thought they were going to have at this point in the year, but they're still not very far out of anything either. But then they've got some decisions to make, both with the draft, which may not be impacted by the current status of the team, but then obviously with the trade deadline here with guys like Skubal and even Mize, because I feel like that's not the conversation always becomes Skubal, but it doesn't necessarily become Mize. And then it's an idea of, well, what do you need some things, but what are you going to be able to get for those guys, and how competitive do you want to stay in the meantime?
Yeah, I think if you started the season saying that the Tigers would be in this spot, a lot of people would be surprised. Tigers were a pretty hot pick to make the ALCS and even make it to the World Series this year out of the American League. They're in a rough spot right now, 5 games back of the wild card. They got a lot of teams to jump right now. But yeah, like you said, it's just been a weird season. They're one of I think there's 6 teams in the AL currently with a positive run differential. But they're also 6 teams or 7 teams out of just the lone wild card spot right now. So yeah, it's a weird spot for Scott Harris to navigate, I think. If you said at the start of the year, they were in it, and Skubal still got half a year left on his contract. Seems pretty obvious at that point. You add bats, you go into your system, and you trade maybe a guy like Max Anderson because you have a lot of infielders. Maybe you trade a guy like, I don't know, Max Clark or some of your other hitters in your in the minor leagues. I don't think they would have traded Clark, but now they're in a weird spot where do you just trade Skubal at this point and you still hope to contend and just get what you can, or do you ride with Skubal and just see what happens? I think that's the worst case scenario, is you stick with Skubal, don't get really anything except for a draft pick in the offseason, and then you still miss the playoffs, which, they've been hot as of late, but they also have about 6 teams to jump. So they're in a little weird spot right now. I think there's going to be some clarity in the next couple of weeks, but they do need to make a decision soon of, are they going to stay and roll with what they have? Could they buy even? Or are they just going to do a sell-off of guys like Skubal, Mize, Gleyber Torres if he's healthy, even a guy like Kerry Carpenter potentially. Just a lot of different ways they can go about this.
The starting pitching rotation is weirdly one of the strengths now, because the bullpen has been much maligned, obviously, but now it looks like they might have a little bit of a solution there, because Cater Montero, who was very underrated as a starting pitcher, really, for them. I thought he was very solid the entire season. It was a smart move to throw him in the bullpen, because pretty much whoever else they put out there wasn't really producing the results that they wanted. But Montero's looked great. And I mean, what a weapon that you can throw a guy out there, and he doesn't necessarily have to do just one inning. He looks pretty sharp, even if he's going 3 innings here.
Yeah, he's been a big revelation this year. He seems like a guy who's just ready to do anything for the team. They throw him in for 6 innings and a spot start when Verlander gets hurt early in the season. I think he went 5 or 6. And then, he's just been kind of all over the place. He's been a starter. Like you said, he's been a reliever, and he's kind of that guy that goes multiple innings, and everyone knows they need that out of the bullpen right now. There's a lot of guys struggling. You got, Jansen's kind of cleaned it up a little bit. Drew Anderson, I think, has the most homers allowed of any reliever in the entire AL, maybe even the MLB. And then, guys like Will Vest, for some reason that 8th inning just gets to him every time. Finnegan's been good if you really look at his regular numbers, but some of his analytics indicate he gets hit a little harder. So, it's just been a weird season overall, and they are playing better as of late, but some of the wins that they get are they're low scoring, and that's because of their pitching, and their starting pitching, like you mentioned, has been really good.
Those bullpen guys that you mentioned, some of the splits are kind of crazy. The vest splits between the 8th and the 9th are wild. It's so vast, and that's interesting to me. The Kenley Jansen home and road splits are really vast as well. And Drew Anderson looked like one of the better pitchers for a while, it really on their team as a whole. He was one of their better pitchers when a lot of the starting pitching was scuffling, and then that hasn't really worked out super well. The Finnegan thing is interesting because he has been fairly effective, but he had this same issue before he got hurt last year. He was getting hit hard last year. His ERA was good, but he was getting hit hard, and so you kind of worried about, if the wind gusts were traveling a certain way or they went to the wrong spot in the field or what have you. But I do worry that they're going to now overuse Montero, though, because that's been some of the issue with guys like Vest and Holton. I feel like they've kind of overutilized them, and so now they're not quite as fresh as they should be, because in the last couple seasons they've really pitched more than relievers typically do, especially Holton. His numbers were kind of crazy, especially that pitching chaos year, which was fun, but maybe not for their arms so much.
Yeah, I think that's part of Hinch's philosophy, though, and that may be something that we see at points come back to bite the Tigers. As you said, the arms last year seemed to tire out, but you see guys getting pulled pretty early. We saw that Montero start a couple months ago against the White Sox. He was pitching really well. I think he hit like 75 pitches through 6 innings, but then he gets pulled, and AJ does that to avoid certain spots in the lineup, and I get all the analytics and such of that, but that does put a lot of pressure on your bullpen, and then it taxes your arms eventually as you go throughout the season. So hopefully we can avoid that this year, but we'll see.
Especially because he does have a few starters that would like to go a little bit longer. Obviously, Skubal that's been kind of called into question at various times with his background, and he's coming off the injury, but he's looking pretty good there. But if you do trade him, you still have a pretty solid rotation. Even with moving Montero going forward, you have really a rotation identified with maybe adding 1 or 2 pieces in. But Flaherty is kind of getting back. I don't know if we can trust that, but he's pitched a lot better. And then if Montero's in the bullpen, if Skubal's gone, depends on if you hang on to Mize, who's quietly been one of their better pitchers, but then you'd have a contract situation to work out. Valdez is the one you have for the longest, but he's not been the most consistent. Then you got the 2 young guys that are looming, one more so this year and hopefully both of them for next year, but you got Job and Olsen in the mix that hopefully will be back. And that's without even mentioning Melton, who has been great in whatever situation he's been put into.
Yeah, Melton, he has just been a stud. He looks like a future ace, and I think that could make your trading Skubal decision a little bit easier, knowing you've got that depth. Obviously, Olsen's had some injuries, and hopefully he gets past that. It doesn't sound like he's going to come back this year, but when he's healthy, he's been pretty good, and I would love to be able to get Mize back. Job coming back would be massive for this team. I saw reports he's already hitting 100 in bullpens. So at sometimes guys come back stronger from surgeries and rehab and such. So intrigued to see what he does. Fromber, there was concern with him when they initially signed him. I was a big fan of the signing, but everyone knows his personality is a little bit different and rubbed people the wrong way in Houston. So I hope that Hinch can sort of manage that moving forward. And there is a lot of depth for this year and the future. And I think that makes the Skubal decision easier for Scott Harris.
I do too. I do think that the rotation is pretty solid. Yeah, Valdez is interesting because they have protected, kind of like the Lions do and some of the other Detroit teams do. They've worried about the culture and the locker room. As you know, being a former player is so important in baseball. You're doing so much sitting and just being around all these other people, and whether you want to have it be a circles of influence thing or what have you, the people that you're around are going to influence your behavior. And so putting kind of a piece that doesn't fit quite as well, I even theorized that was maybe why they didn't get Verlander at the deadline last year, because maybe they didn't want to. Verlander has been largely pretty. He's obviously been great on the field, Hall of Famer, but the locker room stuff kind of goes back and forth with him. But he's also older. He's my age, so he's very old. And, hopefully he's a good locker room presence. It seems like he has been for the young guys, even though the on-field stuff has not gone well for him this year. But Valdez is throwing kind of an ill-fitting piece, it does seem like, in there. So hopefully it doesn't affect the rest of the guys in a negative way, and hopefully they can influence him versus the other way around.
Yeah, and I know with Valdez too, there's been some rumblings that the ABS has kind of changed the way that he pitches. He's not maybe getting that low strike as much as he used to, because umpires know that pretty much every pitch, if a team has challenges left, is challengeable. So they're not as likely to give that low strike, which is where Valdez lives. He's got that nasty sinker that keeps balls on the ground quite often. So he's going to have to kind of figure it out and adjust. He's had some really good starts. We've also seen some stinkers out of him too. So it'd be nice for him to come around and kind of live up to that contract that we signed him to.
I'd love to eventually see a study of how ABS has affected the way that the game operates. Now, this is more of a future subject matter, but I think people are going to be covering those types of things that you're talking about, as far as the guys are going to pitch differently. There's some guys that it's going to benefit a little bit more, and there's some guys that it's not going to benefit quite as much, because, even in the Tigers case, they have two great framers behind the plate. And although I think the framing still factors in, it's also harder, especially if there are challenges. Then it doesn't matter how well you framed the pitch. You might have fooled the umpire, but you can't fool the computer system. So it'll be interesting to see some studies and some actual hard data on this as we go on in the seasons for the ABS. I think people are largely for it, but it'll just be interesting to see, because then there will be a bunch of data that they'll get, and then they'll adjust. The managers and the teams will adjust to that data.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're probably getting to a point where it's just a full ABS strike zone at all times, rather than like a challenging system. I think at some point there's going to be like a buzzer or something that lets the umpire know behind home plate, ball or strike, and they just make a call right away, and it's pretty unnoticeable. I think that's almost inevitable at this point. Everyone can see with technology whether a pitch was truly a ball or was truly a strike, and umpires do a really good job right now. When you look collectively at how they do throughout the game, they're rated very, very high, even though the ones that are poor by fan standards. So, but yeah, I think at some point they're just going to utilize that technology that we now have, and have that just be the every pitch technology that's used to call balls and strikes. So things like pitch framing and receiving the ball, that'll kind of go away as a skill, sort of, because every pitch is just computerized, I think.
I miss the days when you could come out and argue with the umpire, because we unfortunately just lost Bobby Cox. That was his thing. Leland did it a lot for the Tigers. It makes sense that they took it out of the game. It's maybe not the best example for kids and everything too, but a good second base throw was always pretty fun, or what they would do. Yeah. They got very creative with how they would throw their temper tantrums, but no, it has benefited, I think, baseball in general, and obviously the speed of the game has not been great. So they've been doing things to kind of clean up the accuracy, the speed, and all of that. But it'll be interesting to see what the Tigers do here. We'll be continuing to cover them, and we appreciate Clay covering them for us. And be sure to tell us where to follow the various things for both you and the Encore stuff.
Yeah, so I have a X account for my cards. It's just KGS Cards, where I'll post various cards that I find, and then also cards for sale and such. And then, as I mentioned earlier, if you check out EncoreBusinessGroup.com, you'll be able to see all the current services that we're offering through Encore. And then also Encore Business Group on Facebook. That's probably our most active platform right now. And you'll be able to see various updates for the EBG auction house, and various other things happening at Encore Business Group. So, yeah, check us out there.
Definitely. We appreciate you joining us here, Clay. Clay's got to go play baseball. He's talking baseball now. He's got to go play some softball. So hopefully it's cool out there for him. But thanks for joining us, Clay. And we're going to take a quick break and then come back with Will Hamilton. We're going to kind of continue the sports memorabilia discussion. He works for Resolution Photo Matching, and so he's going to update us on the world of game-used photo matching here in both kind of the sports and music realms. So stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Speaking of collectibles, I'm excited to talk to this next guest here. This is Will Hamilton of Resolution Photo Matching. We've interviewed a couple folks from Resolution before. I just think it's a fascinating type of industry that a lot of people don't know about. So we want to illuminate people on that. But Will, the way we do this here is we have a thing of the day that we celebrate, and today is National Fried Chicken Day. So I'm thinking maybe favorite place to get your fried chicken and favorite dipping sauce.
Oh, great question. Pleasure to be on. Thanks for having me, Ryan. I'd go with a local favorite around the Seattle, Washington area, and that's Zell's Fried Chicken. It's funny, if you go into one of their locations, there are photos of them catering Super Bowl 40 for the Seahawks when, of course, that was famously played in Detroit. We won't talk about the refs that day. But I'm not a big sauce guy. I mean, I like a little honey barbecue, but I think it's really about the chicken that makes the meal.
So they catered the Super Bowl in Detroit, this chicken company?
Yeah, some part of it, maybe it was a friends and family dinner, but they were associated with the Seahawks and had a sanctioned event where they brought and cooked all their chicken. You go into one of their locations in Seattle, they got pictures of it up on the wall.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I haven't heard of that. I wouldn't necessarily think of Seattle as the place to go to for fried chicken, but I mean, you can make good fried chicken anywhere.
Yeah, very true. And, I haven't been down to the South and tried fried chicken down there. I'm sure it would blow my mind away. But with what we got up here, I'll take Zell's.
I like it. Okay, interesting. Okay, those are good answers here. We learned something. I'm looking forward to learning more things here too, because like I said, Resolution Photo Matching, they are, for people that aren't familiar with the concept, they take existing photos and videos and use those to match old jerseys, bats, whatever it is. But we'll explain the process to the unfamiliar here, and kind of how you guys got started, and then I want to talk about some of the more interesting pieces that you guys have encountered.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can take you through the process. We'll be celebrating our 10th anniversary this Wednesday, July 8th, of being in business, which we're all very proud of. But photo matching is just what it sounds like. We're using photos to go through and match memorabilia. So the beauty is we don't need you to ship your item. You just send us, for example, you got a basketball jersey, a Cade Cunningham jersey. I send you a couple angles that we need, the front of the jersey, back of the jersey, the tag, a couple close-ups, and we can get everything we need from those images. So we're looking at characteristics that are identical and unique. So we'll go through an entire Pistons season. If it's from the 25-26 season, we'll go through all the main image sources, work our way down, start with Getty Images and work even places like Pinterest. You never know where you're going to find a needle in a haystack, especially with some of these older jerseys that we work on. So we're going through trying to find images that show characteristics that are definitively identical and definitively unique. And we want to make sure that your jersey not only matches the jersey that we're seeing, again, going with this example, Cade Cunningham wearing in game, but the loose thread on the P in Pistons is something that's we're only seeing on his jersey. It's not some manufacturing error that is abundant on a bunch of other teammates' jerseys. And so therefore we can pin down this jersey could only have been worn, and this is the only jersey that could have been worn, and it's worn these dates. Maybe it was a playoff game, and all this adds value. It's really the only way to definitively know that something has been game used. And so we're able to do this across game used items, all kinds of sports, cleats, bats, helmets, but also screen used items as well. We have some fun photo matches in our history that we've made across movies, across historical events, an Amelia Earhart transatlantic flight-worn cap. So we can dive into some of those. But yeah, we're going through and finding concrete evidence that your item has been pinpointed in history And so it adds a lot of value, both extrinsically and intrinsically, knowing that this is exactly when your piece of history was from.
It's a fascinating process because provenance is hard in this industry as a whole, because you want to have kind of a chain of custody almost for the items, but you can't know. I mean, it's like, think of your family stories. You got the stories of your grandparents or your aunts and uncles, and they always change a little bit over time. It's like a game of telephone. It changes a little bit.
Yep.
And so you don't necessarily know. It starts out as a jersey that Grandpa wore in Little League, and it becomes Babe Ruth's jersey from his called shot game or something like that. But that's why it's nice to have folks like Resolution who, like Will said, can kind of pinpoint and match with a more definitive way here the items that you have in your collection, because you never know what it is tied to, and there's a lot of value that can be asserted via if it was matched to a specific thing or game. I have to imagine that any Amelia Earhart hat or any of her collection would be valuable, but matching it to a specific thing that was well known, a piece of history, whether it's in sports or movies or music or what have you, that the more recognizable that event is, then the more valuable the item becomes, because it's tied to that event.
Absolutely. And that can be the fun part of when we're doing our research. A lot of times, for example, in the finals, we'll see they have the trophy patch sewn on, so we have a pretty good idea it's from the finals. Maybe you go a little bit older when jerseys were used more often instead of nowadays where it's like players swap at halftime, and you can kind of uncover important playoff usage or championship usage like that, but also finding record-setting moments as well. This helmet was used. We just did Roger Craig's helmet for the San Francisco 49ers that we used in the game when he notched the first 1,000-yard rushing and 1,000-yard receiving season. We made plenty of other discoveries of milestones and careers. So that's always fun and adds another layer of value and level of interest to each item that we work on.
Do you have kind of a short list of maybe most unique or favorite items that you guys have photo matched? You mentioned the Earhart cap, but are there some other things on that list that the listeners would find kind of unique and interesting?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, I know we're on the airwaves here in Michigan, and I'm a U of M alum, and we just worked on an Aiden Hutchinson jersey from 5 games in his 2021 season. So that's a personal favorite that's come through the doors for us. I was in attendance for all 5 games as a student back in 2021. We got to see all kinds of usage and track it through the season. Eventually the Air Jordan Jumpman had fallen off the jersey. So that's a personal favorite there. But getting into some more significant ones, we resin matched a Bob Ross paint palette, easel, and jeans from the Joy of Painting. So something obviously a little bit more out there for us, but we were able to match that going back all the way to Series 3 of his show, and he had 31 of them, and make, I want to say, nearly 200 res matches. So that was an out there match in the world of entertainment for us. We've definitely seen a soccer surge recently with the World Cup, and then one of the feather in our caps and in our history has been the Diego Maradona jersey that was worn when he scored the Hand of God goal in the 1986 World Cup against England. So those are a couple that come to mind as being some of our premier matches.
That's a great one, especially for this season here. We're going to talk to Nate Wangler next about the World Cup, but I'll have to mention that to him because that's a great one. Yeah, those are good. And you talked about being able. This isn't just a sports thing. We're obviously a radio station as well, and you guys can even match music items to concerts and studio sessions and things like that as well.
Yeah, that's right. We've done it with Keith Richards, a guitar of his, a Mick Taylor guitar as well, some fun movie items. We just did some shoes worn by Ben Affleck in Good Will Hunting, a Tony Soprano shirt from The Sopranos, of course, Kenny Powers shirt from Eastbound and Down, a Kate Winslet jacket from Titanic. Yeah, it's a fun resume that we have.
It's a great service. It's really intriguing to me how you guys do all of this. And we just talked about the auction house that I'm launching, the EBG auction house, and Resolution is going to be our exclusive partner to do this because they are the industry standard. There's nobody that does this better than them. They've got more databases, more photos, all of that, and so we're only photo matching our items through them. But for people that are curious about the process, where can they go to follow you guys? You guys have a podcast, you have a lot of content, but also for people that are interested in the services, how would they find you?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. First off, just want to acknowledge how excited we are to be working together with EBG Auctions, and yeah, you can check us out via our website, resolutionphotomatching.com. There's our contact info there. You can reach us via phone or email, or we have a submission form if you have an item and just want to learn more about the submission process. Just enter in when it was worn, what the item is, and any other provenance and information that you have. And then, yeah, since December, we launched the Game Use podcast. So that's on our YouTube channel, and wherever you get your podcasts, just check out the Game Use podcast. And I've got episodes typically coming out on Thursdays, although we have a special episode releasing on Wednesday. So it's 10 years to the day of Resolution's anniversary. We've got a cool roundtable kind of discussing some of our favorite searches throughout the years and being in news stories throughout the year. And then, of course, Ryan, you and I are going to have an episode coming out soon that I'll be excited for everyone to listen to.
They might be tired of me by then, but listen to it for Will because he's got a lot of great stuff to say. But no, I'll be excited to talk to you guys on that podcast because I'm a listener of that podcast and enjoy it because you really go into some of the stories and things behind memorabilia and the industry as a whole. So it's very informative. But we appreciate you joining the show. We'll look forward to having you back on, and I look forward to talking to you on the podcast here.
All right. Sounds like a plan. Thanks again, Ryan. Talk soon.
All right. Thanks, Will. Talk to you later.
Take care.
Thanks to Will Hamilton. Appreciate him joining us for the show. It's an interesting service. I encourage people to look at it. I know I'm in the sports memorabilia industry, and so like I'm more interested in those things, but it is a very fascinating process that you can take that history that you're trying to preserve and connect with via those jerseys and items, and then you can see the actual game and them wearing it. It's an interesting process that they have there. But be sure to follow them. We're going to turn our attention to the World Cup here. Speaking of soccer and the Hand of God jersey from Diego Maradona, we'll talk with Nate about that. I bet he'll be interested in that. But Nate Wangler, one of the broadcasters for the Whitecaps and one of the analysts for Fox Detroit for the World Cup, he's going to join us after the break and give a little preview of the upcoming game for the U.S. and the World Cup as a whole. Stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Happy to bring on this next guest. We're doing kind of a series with them here because the World Cup only comes around once every 4 years, I think, is the cadence here, like a leap year. And we haven't had it here in the U.S. in a long time. And I feel like we're getting a good script for how this is working out, too. It's been great games for the U.S., but for the World Cup as a whole. But I have a couple things for you at the beginning here, Nate, because one, it's National Fried Chicken Day, and I'm curious if you have a favorite fried chicken, favorite place to get fried chicken from, and a favorite dip for said fried chicken.
It has to be Cousins. Cousins Tasty on the northeast side of town. So kind of, it's off Leonard and what's the Fuller, I think it is, just over here on the northeast side. So anyways, they have really good stuff. Legs or drums. Yeah, it's not really like I could go either way, to be completely honest with you. However, in terms, they have like a sweet honey barbecue that's really good. So if I'm going to go anywhere, it's probably going to be Cousins.
Interesting. That's a good one. So the sweet honey barbecue, that's twice in a row for the sweet honey barbecue. I like that as a choice here, but we're excited to have you on. I'm curious how you've got to be excited about how this has gone here. I'm getting World Cup fever, and now obviously we've got the U.S. about to kick off. But yeah, update me on some of the storylines that you've enjoyed the most as we're kind of drilling down to getting to the final 8 here.
Yeah, I mean, over the weekend, I mean, a few things were apparent. Number one, obviously Canada getting knocked out. I think Jesse Marsh has changed the conversation around what Canada soccer is. I think he brought some of that bulldog mentality that his U.S. men's national team players had back when he was a part of the U.S. Soccer Federation and a part of our system. So I think he's changed the conversation for Canada. Listen, Morocco is just, they're so structurally sound, and they're just such a great tournament team. They proved that in 22. They're doing it again now. I mean, they're the one true African nation that has emerged. Outside of that, the other host country, Mexico, yesterday, I mean, one of the greatest matches I've ever seen. I mean, in consecutive days. I mean, you look at Cape Verde and Argentina, and then Mexico and England, and it's, if it wasn't for Jordan Pickford and Jude Bellingham having the performances of their career with the national team, it's probably a game that Mexico should have taken. I mean, the altitude, the home crowd, everything about that was, sometimes you need that extra little 5% to beat a more quality European side. I thought Mexico had it, but obviously England showed up and matched the intensity, which is something that I think European teams have really had to focus on doing, is living up to that physical intensity. Outside of that, I mean, really quickly, I think the France is just, they're the 90s Bulls. I mean, you have Kylian Mbappe, he's Jordan. You have Ousmane Dembele, he's Pippen. I mean, just go man by man. I think they'll eat anybody alive. I don't think anyone stands a chance against France, to be completely honest with you. I thought Spain looked good today. Boring matchup because both teams are a possession-based side between Portugal and Spain, but crazy to see Ronaldo's run come to an end. Erling Haaland for Norway. I mean, what else can you make of the guy? I made the comparison between him and Calvin Johnson today because what was Calvin to the Lions? He was the great equalizer. I mean, you could throw the ball up there and pretty good chance Calvin's going to come down with it. Same thing with Erling. I mean, you cross the ball into the box, pretty good chance he's going to get a head on it because he's just an athletic specimen. So, yeah, between all those different storylines and obviously Neymar and Brazil, I mean, we really have to have a conversation about what, that team looks like moving forward because I think they've lost their way. I think they started playing more of a European brand of ball, which is not Brazil's MO. So we'll see what they do to change it around. But as far as the U.S. men's national team, this is probably top 3 in terms of most nervous I've ever been for a game in my life. I mean, Michigan, Ohio State's number 1. I think that goes without needing any further explanation. The Chicago Cubs World Series in 2016, and now the U.S. men's national team. So I am, it's going to be a battle tonight. Belgium's a quality side. We'll see how it plays out.
Now, there's been a lot of discussion about the red card headed into this game, and I don't know, I keep seeing more discussion. It feels like, obviously, we're going to be viewed as a little biased. We're U.S. supporters. We're right here rooting for the U.S., but I know you can put your objective hat on. It sounds like most people that have looked at that footage believe that it didn't necessarily garner a red card, but I'm curious about kind of how you take the process in of how that all happened.
Well, here's the truth. I don't think anybody likes FIFA, and when it comes to this red card situation, I think everybody deserves to be a little upset. If you're an American fan, you feel like justice was served, but the way it was served wasn't the right way to go about it. Listen, the way they assessed the red card the first time around, we've seen accredited refs and other people say it shouldn't have been a red, right? So that's strike number 1 against FIFA. It shouldn't have been a red in the first place. But then we circle back, and you're telling me it was probably a text message or someone pulling the strings. You make the executive decision to just allow him to play. Oh, and by the way, you're the host country, and there's probably some incentive here to make sure that the best player of the host country is on the field. If Belgium's upset about that, I completely understand because look at FIFA's track record. I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo in qualifiers elbowed a player from Ireland, should have been suspended for the first match of the World Cup, but he's not. Why? Because he's Ronaldo, and we can't have the World Cup without Ronaldo. So if Belgium or anybody else is frustrated about it, I completely understand it. But obviously the fan side of me is going to say good news that he's back. But truth is, we got to get the ball to Balogun. I think, a lot of American fans are excited that he's back, but, scoring goals in soccer is a lot harder than people think. You need a lot of build-up and proper build-up in order to get the ball to Flo Balogun. So we'll see if they can utilize him tonight.
I was interested to see more Pepe in this game if Balogun was out, because I do feel like he always makes an impact when he's in there, but obviously you don't want it to be at on the substitution of Balogun. You want to be able to deploy them both. But what do you think are going to be the keys to the game here tonight for the U.S. side, other than trying to feed Balogun?
I mean, Christian Pulisic can create mismatches, and you can't. One-on-one with Christian Pulisic is never a good idea. So he's going to be marked. He's going to be double-teamed. Can he affect the buildup of play? And can he feed Flo Balogun? I think Christian Pulisic is the most important component of that. And it's not just about scoring goals. You know, this is a very subtle sport where impact can be in subtle ways. And I think Pulisic has made that impact. In terms of, you know, the most important component for us, we need Dest to get forward. We need Anthony Robinson to get forward and create things from the back and to essentially put pressure on the wings on Belgium. But we have to control the midfield. And I'll be interested to see if Mauricio Pochettino adds another player in the midfield, because if we dominate the game there, we have a chance. If we allow Kevin De Bruyne to be comfortable in possession, we're in trouble, because he has Doku, he has Lukaku, he has options on this team. And so they very easily can expose us if they can create those opportunities from the engine room. So control the midfield, get your backs forward, and put pressure on early. That's when this team's at their best, when they're firing early on.
I like that as advice here for the team. It's going to be a fun one. I just like that we're getting this deep in the tournament. The last round was great for the U.S. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but we're kind of whittling down. If they did win, what would that look like here for the U.S. side for the next matchup?
I mean, they would take on Spain, and then at that point, you got to play perfect for the entire 90s. So, I mean, to be frank with you, I think we have to play perfect for the entire 90 tonight. Let's not look past Belgium. Last time we played them in a friendly, they beat us 5-2. I realize it's only a friendly, but you know, you have to play a great performance tonight, scrap one out, and then if you play Spain, listen, getting to a quarters will inspire a generation, but you got to be perfect. But I don't think anyone's looking past what tonight is.
No, and this will be a fun one either way, because the environment will be great there for, like you said, the host country thing. I mean, that is a real thing for the World Cup and for the Olympics that does boost these sides typically. So hopefully that's able to carry the U.S. through. But either way, since I leaned into the one way here, Nate, I'll cancel out my jinx here and say if they do lose, it's still been a successful run, right? This is still an accomplishment for the U.S. team.
Yes. Yeah. I still think, I mean, the one thing that will continue to hang over our heads is we can't beat a quality European side in a competitive match. I mean, that is going to be the thing that continues to haunt us. But regardless, you know, even look at Mexico. Yeah, okay, the curse continues. But if you look at Mexico in this World Cup, am I saying it's a failure because they fell to England? No, absolutely not. I think they showed far more quality in this run than they have in a long time. I mean, you got to go back a while. And for the U.S., listen, 8 years ago, we didn't qualify because we lost to Trinidad and Tobago. So making it to the round of 16 and putting up a competitive fight tonight and even falling short, no, the conversation has completely changed. And there's a pretty good chance that all of these guys, if not the majority of them, are back next World Cup cycle, and maybe you add in a Kevin Sullivan, or you add in another one of our U20s who have really showed out and continued to get better. So, no, there's still a great path forward, and I would still consider it a success.
Well, I see we just kicked off, so we got to let Nate go and enjoy the game here. We'll have him on to update us either way, whatever happens. Hopefully, I didn't jinx him too bad, but tell the people where they can follow you here in the meantime, and then we'll get you out of here to watch the game.
Yeah, at Wangler_Nathan on Instagram and Twitter, and at Nate the Broadcaster on TikTok. But yeah, I'll go consume that, and we'll hold on for the next few hours, and when the dust settles, you and I will certainly talk about it. So appreciate you.
I love it. Thanks, Nate. Enjoy the game, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
All right, thanks. You too. Thanks, Nate Wangler. Appreciate him joining us. I like this World Cup coverage. I know we stay largely pretty local, but it's been fun to cover them here. But we're going to turn our attention to the more local beat and talk to Robbie Bettelon. We've got a lot of Pistons to discuss here. Dan was talking about that as we were going on air. We got to work out what's going on with this team. So hopefully Robbie can help us do that. So we'll bring him on after the break. Stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM.
From the GarberiноRoofs.com studios in Granville.
Country with a Twist, Jethro FM, 1530 AM, WYGR, Wyoming, Grand Rapids, 94.9 FM, Grand Rapids, 99.5 FM, Lowell, and Jethro South, 980 AM, WAKV Otsego, Plainwell, 98.9 FM, Otsego, and 105.1 FM, Kalamazoo. Available worldwide at jethro.fm.
I'm happy to talk with this next guest because there's been a lot more Pistons coverage than I anticipated. They seem to want to stay in the news cycle here. They're doing a good job of that. And so Robbie Bettelon is one of our favorites to bring on to talk about this. But Robbie, as you know, we like to celebrate the National Day here, and I don't know if you did any research in advance, but we chose Fried Chicken Day, and so I'm curious about your favorite place to get fried chicken from, and because if I remember correctly, you're in a good area for fried chicken, and then your favorite sauce, not necessarily maybe with that fried chicken, but with a fried chicken.
I am definitely a buffalo sauce guy. Even buffalo chicken pizza, I'm a big fan of. I think my favorite is probably Zaxby's, honestly. I think Zaxby's has some really good chicken, but you are correct. I'm in Nashville, so Nashville is known for their hot chicken, and I like some heat, but maybe not that much heat. That's a little much for me.
I had Hattie B's in Nashville. I enjoyed that.
You go.
Yeah, I liked that one, and I'm not really a big hot chicken guy either, but I did enjoy that when I was in Nashville. But it is funny how much variety we have of fried chicken. I was thinking that here in Grand Rapids because we keep having these openings that are blocking up our roads, where I had a cousin that waited for 6 hours to get Raising Cane's. And that just kind of blows my mind. And then about a month later, he waited the same amount of time to get Bojangles. That held up different areas of Grand Rapids, and it's like you couldn't just get it tomorrow or something. But it is funny. We apparently can't get enough fried chicken. That's what I'm learning here, not only in Grand Rapids but just in general. I mean, we're not even in the South, but we want our fried chicken for sure. But that's why I figured we had to celebrate Fried Chicken Day. But I'm excited to talk about the Pistons with you because I'm curious. I think I'm going to start with this question. I'm curious how, and obviously this is a pending grade, but I'm curious how you would grade the offseason so far, because the discussion around the Pistons has interested me so far. So I'm curious how you feel about the offseason so far, with understanding that there's probably some moves to be made here.
Right. My first thought was maybe like a low B, maybe like a B minus. Yes, you're certainly right that there's still hopefully more to come. I mean, we know the Duran situation still has to be settled, but I think my reason for not having like a higher grade, and I think by the end of the summer, I could very well change based on this, but I feel like we haven't had a move yet that has gotten paid like his number 2 guy. I like John Collins as a similar type of Tobias kind of player. The Isaiah Joe trade is maybe my favorite move of the offseason, but I'm still waiting for like a Trey Murphy kind of a deal, or just, the Tyler Hero whispers that we heard earlier. Just somebody who, is used to scoring, over 20 points per game, can really shoot the ball. I've been waiting on that move. So I guess, maybe we'll call this the midterms, and by the final exam, our grade will be raised by then. But, so I'm still TBD, but I think it's just slightly disappointing with me wanting to find that number 2 guy so far.
I wouldn't bet on me increasing our grade, Robbie. I wouldn't. I've been out of school for a long time, and I don't know about that. But no, I agree with that assessment. It's just interesting to me because I feel like I'm seeing the Pistons on a lot of like losers of the off-season lists and different things like that. And I know people are kind of chomping at the bit to get some additions because because they were getting close last year. But it's just funny, the discourse, because it's like they were pretty close. They got further than the year before. They're ahead of whatever schedule you would have certainly had for them a couple years ago. Not that we have to go back that far, but they're ahead of schedule. They're a young team. They've got a good future. They were one game short of getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. So you're getting that progression in there. But it's just funny to me that people were ready to blow it up at the end of the season, and now that they're just making some, I think, strategic re-signings, because although that's not necessarily the headline grabbing stuff, you've got the moves that you talked about. I think re-signing Javonte Green is a strong move. He was a good piece last year. He's a cheap piece, so you're keeping the books intact. I'm curious how you take in the Herder signing, though, because I've read some scuttlebutt that you got to be careful when you're reading scuttlebutt, because you never know, especially if it's on different social media platforms. But I did see something that there was a theory that potentially the Herder signing was making good on an agreement that they had that was supposed to be a trade that fell through. But I like the signing independently. So whether or not, I mean, I'm all for the virtuous Pistons. I like people, sticking to their word. So if that's what they did, that's good too. But it's not a bad number. I am curious what it's going to do to the cap situation, but it's not a bad number. And when he was healthy for the limited games that he played with the Pistons, he did fit in fairly well. So you got to think if he's healthy and has a camp with them, he's going to factor in more next year.
Yeah. So the off season, I think I'm with you that it's just been like, I think people are just getting impatient, and patience doesn't mean that, they're not working, trying to make the team better. And then also with, restricted free agency is much different than unrestricted free agency. And so Detroit really holds all the cards, especially right now, as, teams with cap space have already pretty much filled up their cap space. For the Duran negotiations, I wouldn't be surprised for that to go on a little bit longer. But I originally, with the Kevin Herter deal, thought that an additional move was going to come after that. I kind of thought with the drafting of a Corey, who is I think 6'2", is really more of a point guard than a shooting guard, but basically they drafted a guard, they traded for Isaiah Joe, and then signing Herder, it almost made me wonder if they were going to use Duncan to then make a trade. He's got like a $15 million, $16 million contract. So at first it made me wonder if Herder was a replacement for Duncan or just like another movement shooter at shooting guard. Which still very well could be the case, with the offseason still to go. But I don't mind the Herder deal. I think when he was healthy, he played decent. The third year is a team option. And I think he offers. So one thing I'll compare it to Tim Hardaway Jr., who, used to be a Piston, and then Luke Kennard also used to be a Piston. Both of them got paid about $6.5 million, and Herder got $9 million. And I think Herder offers a little bit more defensively and also a little bit more on the ball too than both of those. So I think his contract is fair value as well. But I think people are just itching, want to know what the next big move is. I mean, I can't blame them. Sometimes I feel that way too, where you're just waiting for the next, Shams tweet of whatever the next big deal is. So I think it's coming. It's just tough that we got to be patient for it.
I agree. And I do like the moves that they're making, because you compared the Collins move to Tobias. It would have been great, I think, to have them retain them both. I thought one of the keys to the offseason was being able to push Tobias to the bench and still having his veteran presence. He's very durable. He does have the old adage, he does have the best ability, which is availability. He's typically very available. I thought he played well and would be a good bench piece, and obviously is a good leader for this team. So I was hoping that Collins signing would bolster that, but now they've got to replace Tobias. But I do like the lob threat and hopefully outside shooting and athleticism that Collins can provide, because Tobias was very effective at it, but he basically had one or two go-to moves. He was going to that post, and he was he was going to work you down. But Collins, I think, provides a little bit more variety. I think he's been kind of lost after his stint with the Hawks. So this seems like a decent value for a guy that was once viewed. I mean, I shoot on those Hawks teams that were pretty good. He was viewed as the number 2 guy to Trae Young. Not that I'm saying he can be the number 2 to Cade, but he was viewed as that kind of talent.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm with you as well, where I was expecting Tobias to come back. I think that really has been like the saddest move for me this offseason. Losing Stu was tough as well, but just based on, them having to pay Duren and how well Paul Reed played, especially in the playoffs, it kind of seemed like the writing was on the wall for Stu. But for Tobias, and I had this conversation with Wes from Detroit Bad Boys, and I feel like I kind of placed Tobias in this Al Horford role of like, okay, you're getting a little bit older. You can, take a bench role and, be like a combo forward off of the bench. And just because I put him in that role doesn't mean that he wanted to be in that role. And if you can be a starter next to Victor Wembanyama on one of the best teams, not only in the West, but in, the NBA, I can't blame him for taking that opportunity if he feels like, he still is a starter in this league and can play starter minutes, then by all means, go for it. So I'm happy for him, but I do, I think ultimately the fit of John Collins is better than Tobias, though. And to kind of go off of what you said with Tobias's post game, is John really focuses more on either shooting the three or getting to the rim. And he still has his athleticism. I think he's about 28 now or 29, so still young, still has his athleticism. The fact that, hopefully Duren will be back and we'll see who, the fifth starter ends up being, but surrounding Cade with Asar, John Collins, Jalen Duren, all lob threats for a passer as good as Cade is, I think is really cool too. And will make for plenty of fun highlights this year as well.
I agree. And the Harris thing, it's just, I do think he would have been a good fit, but he wasn't great, as you're kind of alluding to. He wasn't great for the spacing for the Pistons, which that
Correct.
Was an issue at times. I think they worked it out pretty well for the general lack of spacing that they do have. Thompson's not an outside shooter at this time, but he's a good player. He's a valuable player. He made a lot of hay as a cutter, so then that helped the spacing, even though he was drawing people to the hoop a little bit more. We'll get to Duren probably in the second segment, but he, I think, has some untapped potential with his jumper. And then they had serviceable shooters otherwise, as far as Green was, I think, above expectation in his shooting from the outside, and they had some other shooters to help Cade, and hopefully they retain as many of those as possible, because you talked about trading Duncan, and I get that as a bigger, as kind of a move for a bigger piece. You've got to give something to get something, especially if you're talking about a Trey Murphy or somebody that is an upper echelon player. But they also don't want to necessarily just replace shooters. They want to make sure they added shooters, so at least they're ending up with two either way, if you've got Herter and Joe or Robinson and Joe, however it ends up. But I wouldn't mind having all three either, because having some length and some shooting where you can kind of rotate it in, and if a guy's a little cold, if a guy's hurt, then that box is still checked.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's funny where it's like, hey, it's okay if Detroit has, 2 or 3 shooters. They don't have to just have one. Like, you're allowed to have more than one shooter, Detroit. I agree with you, and I've had this conversation before, or just kind of, I guess, internal debate as well, of between a trade piece of either Duncan Robinson and, like his knockdown shooting, or Ron Holland, and kind of like still a young player in this league, still trying to find his way, that, is still working on his jump shot. I don't know which one is more valuable around the league, but I think if I had to pick, I'm with you that I think this team could use all the shooting that it could get. And I think in that scenario, I would prefer them to keep Duncan over Ron. But right now, they just have so many guards as well. Just this roster also just needs some balancing out, and so that's another reason that leads me to believe that something else is still coming.
Well, I want to talk about what's potentially coming next here. We got to talk about the Duran situation, and then what maybe the most likely next move is. But we'll come back with Robbie Bettelon of Detroit Bad Boys after the break. Stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Coming back here with Robbie Bettelon of Detroit Bad Boys, talking about the Pistons, having a good overview here. We're probably about halfway through for our 2 segments here, so that's good, because there's just a lot to unpack. The situation that we haven't really talked about yet is the situation with Jalen Duran, and it's interesting where they're at with him, because I'm a Duran fan. I'm a believer in his upside, but everything with me with sports and acquiring players comes down to value. What was the value that you traded out to get them? What was the value that you signed them for? I think it's all relative. It's, hey, we got this player, but what did you sign him for? And Duran is now in that discussion. He's a young guy with a lot of upside, and nobody can blame him for pushing for more money. But I'm curious kind of how you take in this situation as a whole, and what you would like to see happen as far as the Pistons side of things with him, because he's trying to get leverage. He's going to other teams. He's trying to make sure to see what offers he has. But I mean, I don't know how credible of a threat it is to say, hey, I'm going to go to the Kings. You really have got to be about the money to go out out there, because I believe Sacramento did at one point have a video making fun of Detroit. So maybe he's comparing the 2 cities here. But I'm just curious how you kind of see this situation resolving itself.
Yeah, I from a, like, I guess, NBA rules standpoint, like from restricted free agency, like the process to this is normal, to the point of where, if Detroit is offering a certain amount and Duran and his team think that they can get more, then they're welcome to go get more, and they can explore that, and they can, see what his value is around the league. And if a team wants to give him more money, Detroit will have an opportunity to match that. So it's really everybody in this situation is doing what they're supposed to. Trajan, from the organization side, is trying to get the best deal that he can. And Duran, after making All NBA, is eligible to get 5 years and $287 million. So if I'm eligible to get that kind of money, I'm going to try to ask for all that money. Doesn't mean I'm going to get it, but I can't, blame Duran for trying to get the most that he wants to get. And eventually, I do think this settles, and both parties are happy. And I think Duran ultimately returns to Detroit, and I want him to return to Detroit. Trajan, this whole summer at any press conference, has mentioned Detroit's big 3, and has mentioned Cade, Asar, and Duran as their big 3, that he's trying to acquire players that can make life easier on them. And I think so far this summer, we're seeing that with the additions of Isaiah Joe, of John Collins, guys that can really shoot it, bringing back Kevin Herter. We'll see what else they have planned, but I definitely think that Duran will return a Piston, and it's always been, the Detroit's front office's plan of always bringing him back.
I think I was more intrigued by the options with the Kings because I immediately became Sabonis, but we talked to Wes. We had him on last week, and he made a good point about the information, the way that it was posted with, hey, look at how it reads, saying if you're going to put Duran in a trade to the Kings, the most likely scenario is Sabonis, but that doesn't mean the Pistons have interest in that or anything like that. But a couple of those young guys do interest me, and if you could kind of reset the timeline a little bit, get younger guys on good salaries. I know Murray didn't have a great year last year, but I think he's still got a lot of upside and would be a good fit with the Pistons. They got a couple young big men on that team. It'd be a little leap, but if the choice is, hey, we got to invest 35-40 million in Duran, or we get a couple younger pieces and some picks that we can then consolidate to make a play at another player, that might be interesting. But I'm still with you. I still think there's a lot of upside with Duran, and I'd like him to be part of that core.
Yeah, when I first heard about those Sacramento rumors, Sabonis was the first one to come to my mind. But I think the thing that was most appealing was the idea of having those picks, and then exactly like you said, maybe flipping those picks somewhere else to go get one of those upper echelon players like Trey Murphy or someone along those lines. I don't know if it was ever on the table, but the deal that Utah got for Walker Kessler from the Lakers, 2 firsts and 2 swaps, if that was on the table for Jalen Duran, I think I would probably have a hard time turning that down, especially because Detroit, they have all their first round picks, but they don't have any extra first rounders. They've got a couple extra seconds, but they really don't have like a plethora of draft picks. So, being able to get, kind of increase your draft capital, your asset pool, and then being able to use that in another trade is appealing. But yeah, I think ultimately they'll both end on a happy number for both sides.
I agree. And I think he's been underrated so far. I know there was a lot made of the whole playoff thing. I mean, there is an increase in intensity. I feel like we've talked about this, and I've talked about it with other analysts on the show. But when you get to the playoffs, there are guys that are maybe not necessarily going full bore in the regular season. That is one of the Pistons' calling cards. So other teams may not have been. I don't think that was real apparent in a lot of the playoff runs, the playoff run for the Pistons. But Duran was having a hard time with some of those more experienced big guys that he was matched up with. But I think I've had this with certain players. I think when you see a profile or when you look at a guy, you look at Jalen Duran and you go, how old is he? He's like in his 30s, right? And then you think, well, why isn't he handling Wendell Carter better? Well, because he's 22, and you're going to get some pretty prime years with this contract if you get him now, because he's got a lot of untapped upside, I think, too.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, recency bias, I think most people, think about his playoff performance and instantly think he's, maybe not worth the money that he was expected to get. But, 22 years old, he was an all-star. He was an all-NBA player. He seems very, very close with your franchise player, Cade Cunningham, and is one of the best lob threats in the league, which, Cade loves playing with a lob threat. So ultimately, I think, especially this playoff season, now that he's kind of on the national scene in the league, I think, one, the matchup is just tough for him. Orlando, big and physical. Cleveland, big and physical. But I also think this is one of the first times that he was kind of like scouted against in an opponent's game plan where, this is the first time in his NBA career that an opposing team, is factoring him in their defensive game plan where, hey, we want to take away the Duren lob threat. We want to take away Duren on the roll, so we're going to pack in the paint. So with this being the first time that he's really been like game planned against, I think as he develops, and kind of what you alluded to earlier, the idea of him, building his offensive game, which I think he built his kind of dribbling and driving ability this past season. He shot a few jumpers. Maybe he shoots a few more this season. And frankly, if there's anyone that, if I had to pick between Ausar or Duren developing like a real 3-point jumper, I think I'm picking Duren to develop that over Ausar. So I think he can do it.
I'm with you because I really do like Duren's form. I know it's not all about the form because I would, if I were a shooting coach, I would have had a hard time not changing Tyrese Halliburton's form as he was growing up.
Right.
But he's a great shooter, so you can't really question that. Some of those things work for certain people. Sean Marion had that push shot, but I do think that the form is a big part of it, and especially for a big guy, Duren does have. I mean, I know these videos have been circulating around the internet, but I do think that. I mean, I remember this time frame where he was able to take that elbow jumper. Some of them were off the dribble. Some of it was off a bit of a crossover. I mean, you don't necessarily have to get that fancy with it, but if you can do a Udonis Haslem, hit a baseline jumper, hit an elbow jumper, it doesn't even necessarily have to go out to 3 right now. Just get that down and you've improved the spacing, because that's one of the main things that you need to address on offense is making sure that paint isn't too packed for whatever Cade wants to do in there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, those are the reasons why playoff basketball is just so valuable to, guys that are so young in the league. And honestly, from a fan standpoint, like it's a completely different season, between the regular season and the playoffs, and the physicality changes, rotations shorten up. Players are specifically game planned against for, what could be 7 straight games. Coaches adjust. Maybe, instead of one player guarding this specific player, then you mix it up the next game. Or so I think now that they've experienced that, we experienced, those spacing issues in the playoffs. It looks like Trajan is beginning to address that to this offseason and looks to continue to do so, but we also can't rule out, the development of Cade, Duren, Ausar. Maybe Cade can improve his off-the-dribble 3-point shooting to really pull teams out to him at the 3-point line after a pick and roll. Maybe you're right that Udonis Haslem, that Antonio McDyess 15 to 18 footer for Duren, and then, maybe a floater for Ausar Thompson. Maybe he's working on that little mid-range fadeaway that he likes when he fades away to the right. So yeah, not only, is Trajan finding some help, but, our three core guys will certainly develop some more too.
I agree. And I think people need to focus on the development part. I think that's a little bit more abstract. So even if Thompson doesn't produce a better jumper, he's still going to develop as an offensive player. I think his handle will improve. I think his ability to run the break and take some of the heat off of Cade will improve. He was great as a cutter and found his space a little bit more. If I could choose one of two things, a jumper would be great, but I would love him to just be a little bit more decisive when really in any situation on the floor, but especially when he gets into the paint. It's like he can do anything, and then he's got too many options. Once because he's got such great footwork and athleticism, it's like, well, I could do a little bit of a finger roll. I could take one more dribble and get to the hoop. I could pass. If he was like me, all I could do was shoot. That was it. I didn't have any other options. I could pass a little bit, but it was like, yeah, it's pass or shoot. I can't out jump anybody. I can't. I have the Bill Laimbeer jump. I jump over a piece of paper maybe. And so that's sometimes the problem, I think, with Thompson, where he'll have that go-to. I mean, look at Tobias Harris. That's kind of, he knows what works for him at this age.
Yep.
And so he goes to that. Whereas when you're Thompson, it's like, yeah, the world's kind of your oyster. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, he'll find his go-to move, that he can get to a spot on the court that he's comfortable with. Maybe, it's a little fade away in, just right before the free throw line or around the free throw line. Same thing with Duren, to be able to just pull those guys out of the paint a little bit. But yeah, I'm with you. I cannot jump out of the gym like Asar can, so. It's easy for us when we're like, oh, I can't dunk it. I don't got to think about anything else. I'll just either shoot it or keep the ball movement. So I'm right there with you.
It's nice to have options. Maybe I'm just jealous. That's all that's happening there. But no, I think I think there's going to be some development there, and that will help the team. And then you layer in those other players. But the one last thing is the big move here. I know we've talked about Murphy. Is that kind of your number one, or do you have some other things that you would like them to do?
I think just from like a fit standpoint, from a contract value standpoint, from a like a connection standpoint, that everything just points to Trey Murphy, and I think he solves a ton of problems for them offensively. And this is more so a dream of mine than I think it's reality, but I like the idea of them getting Trey Murphy to play small forward and then moving up Asar to play shooting guard, just to kind of make a jumbo, like this really, really big starting lineup. So I think Trey Murphy is just too many signs point his way for him to not be the top guy. And so I think he would be on mine. And as I know there's been kind of whispers online of this recently, and I don't know if there's really any truth to it, but I think given Kevin Durant's like friendship with Cade and his admiration for Cade, I think he would enjoy playing here. And KD just, he as a ball handler at 6'10", 6'11", 7 foot, whatever he is, he could play the 3, he could play the 4. He hasn't scored under 25 points since his rookie year, so he would instantly become the best scorer that Cade has ever played with. And he also, plays a position in need for this team. So I think those are two pretty big swings. And I'm not sure that, Trajan wants to give up the assets for that, but maybe eventually that asking price will lower a little bit, and we, who knows, maybe we'll see something this week.
We were keeping an eye on it even for the show because, you never know when this news is going to drop here. But
right.
But it is interesting. It's funny to me because the names usually garner more. People are looking at the Durants and Kawhi Leonard. He's off the board, but those kinds of guys. And then I see a lot of news about, oh, well, Murphy's not worth that price, is he? It's like, well, you get a lot more years of Murphy. He's going to fit into that young core. So I'm with you. I think he's worth the spend. His contract is good, and I don't really care how many picks you give up for him if that's who you get back. Whereas you're shortening that timeline if you go after a Durant or one of these other older guys that their health has not always been great. You don't know how many years they've got left in the tank. Not always the best fit with their teams. Whereas Murphy, I think, is going to fit in. That's the first time I've heard that jumbo lineup suggested, though. I like that as an option to throw out there.
Yeah, and that, you're relying on that one as Asar and Duren, kind of taking some playmaking responsibilities as well to help off of Cade. So you're definitely betting on development a little bit in that lineup, but the idea of kind of Detroit just being this big, giant physical team is really appealing to me. Is just kind of, embracing the city, and then also just kind of embracing the fact that you have a 6'6", 6'7" point guard who can be the smallest guy in your starting lineup. It's just it's a crazy concept, but one that I like.
I like that you're thinking outside the box. That's important here. But
Right.
I appreciate you coming on and joining us. That was a great summary of the off season so far. Hopefully we'll check back in after they maybe do make some subsequent moves and nail some more things down. But tell people where they can follow you guys here in the meantime.
Yeah, check us out, www.detroitbadboys.com. We've got a ton of Pistons content out there right now with every move that they make. We're usually getting an article out about it. And then you guys can follow me on Blue Sky or Twitter at BobbyBuckets313.
Be sure to follow him and them. Always good coverage there. And yeah, we'll look forward to having you back on the show soon here, Robbie.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Always good talking to you, man. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, Robbie. Talk to you later.
Yep, bye-bye.
Thanks to Robbie Bettelon. Appreciate him coming on and joining us about the Pistons here. It's going to be interesting to see how this kind of plays out here with the Pistons. But I gotta come back in and talk to the birthday boy tomorrow. I want to find out what his ideal birthday day is. We're gonna ask him about that after the break here with D-Money. So stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Coming back here in studio, Dan and I were checking on the soccer game. We got to talk about that a little bit because they're already falling behind. We haven't even gotten a chance to watch it. I don't know what Dan's been watching. He's got lots of monitors. Most of them don't work, so I don't really know what he's been watching over there.
I haven't been watching anything. I've just been cruising, checking for Pistons updates, sports updates.
He's staying on the wire, making sure we're up to date on the show.
Hot nothing. Is the home run derby tonight? Is that going on?
Is
the All-Star break this week?
No, I don't think so.
Is it?
No.
They did all the reading of who the All-Stars are. Like I saw a bunch of those videos.
I think the Tigers play Ath today.
Okay.
I think they're still playing.
Okay, so it's a week from a week. Because the way I saw all the All-Star videos, I was like, is it? Because like I don't care about the All-Star game. I mean,
I don't either.
I want to. I just kind of just stopped watching baseball. Yeah, you're right. Or they're off today, and then they're athletics.
Oh yeah, Ath tomorrow. Yeah.
So yeah, no. So I'm like, shouldn't the home run derby? Because like I saw multiple videos of managers reading who the All-Stars were. Like I saw the Rays guys and like at AJ Hinch in the locker room announcing their three, or was it three? Yeah, Dingler.
So far, yeah.
So yeah, I guess we still have baseball this week. That's right. I'm going to a game Sunday, so I should know that.
Well, okay. See, I'm glad we got there. So you're going to a game Sunday. Is that to kind of celebrate your birthday?
Do this every year. It's actually Polish Falcons bus trip has to tie in with the Polka Pops. That's
nice.
Why my dad, the station owner, is a member of the Polish Falcons.
Yeah, Polish Mafia. We get it.
I mean, I don't know what goes on in the back rooms. I'm not a member. I just take the advantage to go on this bus trip. So, I mean, yeah, who knows what they could be in. So, yeah, I mean, I know where the Dutch Mafia is. I don't. What is your background? Well,
I'm Polish.
You're Polish. Oh, so you. So you know. So you're all right. Well, changing subject.
I think that's why. I think that's part of the reason why Scott hired me. What was because I was Polish. I think he did the research, and
it had nothing to do with your illicit file on him and implicating him in multiple crimes using your intelligence background. Because I thought that was what he told me.
I mean, so that's what I was saying. Since I'm Polish, I'm aware of his background, and then I was able to get some spies in there to collect information because he's like the Godfather back in the Polish Falcons room. He's in the back room, high table, high booth.
Oh yeah,
people come to see him and get favors.
With zero Polish blood, it's very impressive. So, well, that's cool.
He's got to have some. Come on, he's got to have something.
I mean, possibly. I don't know that he's ever done one of those. I don't like the idea of those DNA tests. I've never done that.
I did do it once. Yeah.
I don't know. Not that I'm ever going to commit a crime, but just the fact that they have it on file and they use it. I don't know.
Okay.
It seems a little weird. That's how I found like the Golden State Killer. Like,
yeah,
I'm like, not that they're going to find me with the Granville Grabber or something, but like, just I don't need other people with my information. So
that came out too quick. The Granville Grabber. Yeah. I feel like you've had some plans.
I gave that nickname. There was when I was in elementary school. There was actually a guy who apparently in the Granville school district, like a brown hooded man tried to grab a couple young girls and both got away. So
thank goodness they got away.
I nicknamed him the Granville Grabber, but that was, it
is.
It was a real thing, but I wasn't me. I was in elementary school.
You seem it seems kind of suspicious. You seem kind of guilty.
You can research, have Rex on the case. I don't care. I don't know if he's still affiliated with the show or if he's got a different alias now, but
he's still Rex. He's still hanging in there.
He's still Rex.
Yeah,
Okay.
he might have to transition back to his former line of work here. We might have to deploy him to the field because we've got a lot for him to do in the field here.
Yeah.
He's got to research this Granville grabber thing.
Yeah.
He's got to realize what your dad's
Oh, so he
doing.
put the file together. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's my intel guy. He's
Oh.
yeah.
I guess you are retired. I wish people could see air quotes on the air. But
I think they got it from
Yeah,
from
okay.
the tone. Yeah, I think So you're insinuating that I'm still actively in the service while I'm on the show.
I'm insinuating. I don't know that you ever truly retire. I don't know. I've seen movies. I don't know how it actually goes. You still have connections. You still have, people you know. I mean, your eyes are awfully shifty when I said that. I mean, I thought you were supposed to have a good poker face. I thought they train you on this.
I was thinking of another scenario. What if I was never in it in the first place?
Oh, that's. Are you? Is that like a double agent?
Quadruple agent.
Quadruple. I'm in it. I'm retired. No, but I'm actually in it. But I'm retired. But I'm in it. Okay.
I just wanted it for credibility for the station to hire me.
You could have had something else.
Well, actually, that's not even why they hired me.
Ryan Walsh. Don't look at my stats. All right, whatever.
There is a lacrosse player, a professional lacrosse player that shares my same name.
Probably not a big market for that. I know it's a growing sport, but
we also have not talked about lacrosse once. I think that's the first time I've ever mentioned it on the show.
Noticed, you see more kids practicing it. Like you're driving on the road, like in Granville, it's like I've seen multiple different, like you see the fields. And this has nothing to do with me and my Granville grabber history, but you see lacrosse practice. Like where I used to see football practice, it's now lacrosse sometimes. So
I've seen more lacrosse games than arguably anything else because I had two nieces that went all the way through to college.
Oh, wow.
in lacrosse. Yeah. So I had been seeing them since the time they picked up a stick, basically at
rugby,
5.
For some reason, I mean, both kind of grew a little bit. I've seen actual rugby games, like high school. Like some schools carry it, and that to me, I mean, if you're talking about people wanting the sports to be less dangerous, rugby seems a little bit more, because there's not a lot of padding worn, and it can get physical.
I think I would have liked rugby. I think that would have been my sport because I am the opposite of how some people become. We've talked about this a little bit on the show. I talk about my very brief high school football career where I was a backup lineman. Yeah. I did nothing. I was not good at all. I played a decent amount of sports. I liked sports, but I wasn't good at them. I have this conversation with my nephew all the time because he always talks about, well, how were you? Could you dunk? Could you do this? And I'm always very matter of fact with him. I'm like, no, I couldn't do anything. Yeah. And he's always surprised because everybody that he talks with they were always the star player. They could do everything. But I do think rugby might have appealed to me enough to play that in high school if we had that as an option. Yeah, back in my
I could see that
high school days.
Yeah,
I would have liked the contact because I made everything to contact heavy.
Two-hand touch was always pushing the person to the ground. I
kind of. Yeah,
football, you grab their neck. Oh, I thought it was a flag. I get it. All right.
I led the league in penalty minutes when I played indoor soccer. I'll put it that way.
Wow. Yeah, I tried to get an indoor team signed up. I was never into soccer, but indoor seemed fun.
It was fun.
A few games.
And it was just more of a momentum issue. It wasn't over aggression. I would just be pursuing somebody and then they'd stop.
Skates, it's not kind of, you can't skate, I can't stop.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. I mean, I always had a decent amount of momentum. I've got a decent amount of mass, so it was like, they would stop and then I would hit them.
On a snowboard, I can't stop, so I just start rolling.
You just roll. Yeah, I never tried the snowboard. I can't do. I did skiing, but I can't do the. I was worried about the snowboard.
You guys seem like an East Grand Rapids type. We're just going to skiing in Colorado this weekend. I can see that.
That is I resemble that here. That we did do the skiing. We did get into the skiing. I didn't do a ton of East Grand Rapids activities. I remember the worst burn, maybe other than that one, also happened on the radio where we were off from everybody else in the state was off from school.
Yeah.
And we were not. we had to go to school at East Grand Rapids, and I remember the radio host saying, well, I guess the East Grand Rapids kids are going to be walking to school in their Birkenstocks and their khaki pants.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, that I'm hurt by that, but also it's very true.
Right. Yeah, I get it.
I didn't sport that, but it was true for most of the school.
I don't know much about the East Grand Rapids culture. I've been over there to a few restaurants, and I think I went to the library once to get a book that they only had over there, and I felt very out of place. I just felt like they were looking down at me. I was crawling on the ground, but they did feel like they were looking down at me. I didn't know how to act.
I like how you had to go to the East Grand Rapids Library to get a specific book that they didn't have anywhere else.
Well, it was just, it was part of the Kent library system. They're like, the only copy we have is this. I was like, okay, I'll go over there. And it was how to use the potty. And I was like, I'm 18 now. I should probably do it. I got my first library card. And so, I don't know.
Well,
everybody does poop.
That's true. I have read the book. I have read it. I didn't rent it from the East Grand Rapids Library.
I think it was the book actually was when I got it. But I won't talk about the stains I saw. But
well, we were supposed to talk about what Dan wanted to do for his birthday, but presumably
we need to take a break real quick.
It was, I know, but presumably it was just this, I guess. But just
yes.
The library. You're going to go to the library, and maybe we'll cover it after the break. But we do have to take a break, and we'll be right back to close up the show. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Back to Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh, presented by Collectibles Insurance Services. Want to thank them and the rest of our sponsors here: Eric Hall Aesthetic and General Dentistry, Calder Financial, Grand Management Group, Rydan Investments, Encore Business Group, Jim Haglund of JH Realty, Williams Chiropractic, iCore, West Michigan Sports Commission, and we have a new sponsor here, Nomad Be Happy. I actually just recorded the read for it, but we've got a read here. I feel like Dan might have a comment about this, so that's why I'm going to read it to him here. So, are you ready to roam? Ryan Walsh here, and Sports Intel is brought to you in part by Nomad Be Happy, a nationwide van rental service where you can rent my very own specially outfitted A-Team themed camper van for your next adventure, business, promotion, or charity event. In addition to my camper van, Nomad Be Happy has other vans available all across the U.S. So before your next road trip, check them out at nomadbehappy.me or on social media. Van life your way, Nomad Be Happy. So there you go. You can rent my van, Dan.
Yours is the A-Team?
Yeah, it's A-Team themed. And
is that actually a thing that you like?
I do like the A-Team.
Oh, I just know that's like Mr. T was a part of that. I don't really know much about the A-Team.
Well, Scott also threw in I pity the fool who doesn't rent my van in the commercial. So that'll be something to look forward to here. I think Nomad Be Happy is going to be happy with that. But yes, I'm a big A-Team fan. Well, because it's kind of we're talking about my status and where I am in kind of the government service circles. That's kind of where they are. They were always in this strange amorphous status, and they all had different roles, and I've kind of related to the different ones. I don't think I would, as much as everybody probably wanted to be Mr. T. He was the tough one. Yeah. He was B.A. Baracus. He was the tough one. I probably in most of my situations am the Colonel Hannibal Smith. The guy that he loves it when a plan comes together. He's the leader that orchestrates everything.
When you use words like amorphous, I think you must love a well-organized plan. So that makes sense.
Well, my other options are the face man, Lieutenant Peck, who was basically the one that got him out of all the situations by his good looks. That's out for me.
Yeah.
Face for radio here. We can't do that one. And then they had Murdoch, who was the pilot, who was kind of crazy. So that's the other.
Murdoch.
That's the other. Yeah, Murdoch was the most entertaining.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
I mean, that would work. I like the idea of comparing our universe to the A-Team.
Yeah.
We've done this with other universes here, but I still think we need to build out the Jethro universe at some point in time.
I mean, you could choose anything: the Avengers, the A-Team. I don't know, just any sort of wild group. The Hangover people. Which one are you in the Hangover?
I don't know who's Zach Galifianakis in The Hangover for
you may
here.
Look like him, but I don't think that's you. I think that's Big G. But
Zach Galifianakis comp. I got a Patton Oswalt comp when we tried to do lookalikes day.
Yeah.
Jeff Isaac was getting way better lookalikes. He was getting like all these handsome Australian actors, and I was getting Patton Oswalt.
Patton Oswalt.
Yeah.
Kind of makes sense. But yeah, Zach Galifianakis is actually kind of, you got the beard, and when he cuts his hair, I like that.
You like that one? Okay, well, he is fine. So I'm Zach Galifianakis minus the sense of humor.
No, you have a sense of humor. I mean, you laugh, so you understand. You're not like just straight faced and spectrum me. I think you're good. So, just don't understand social cues or anything. I think you're very good at reading social cues.
I'm not sure where this is going. I think we've got to cut this off at the pass. But happy birthday to Dan tomorrow, to D Money. I'm glad he got to talk with me and make fun of me on air, and glad Mom could witness it all. She didn't keep us on track here as the EP. She was supposed to. But thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week. Until then, stay informed and stay vigilant.